Chris with Remax Heritage Professionals, and in the news lately there's been talk about an increase in the number of foreclosures, and so I thought it'd be a good idea to do a video a little bit about what to do if you find yourself in that situation. So and to be clear, there's not a record number of foreclosures. We're not looking like 2008 where there was a flood of foreclosures. We're just seeing an increase from an all-time low during the pandemic. But that doesn't provide any comfort if you find yourself in this situation where you're being foreclosed on. So I wanted to talk a little bit about sort of what are the 5 things that can happen once foreclosure proceedings have been filed against you. And it is a legal proceeding, it's a court proceeding, it's called a notice of lis pendens. And it does take some time. In Florida, it can take 6 months or so to even get to court. It can actually take a couple years to get resolved. But that length of time doesn't provide any solace to someone who's facing foreclosure and that whole situation. So let's get into the 5 things that can happen. The first action you could take is you do nothing, and ultimately what that's going to result in is you ultimately get foreclosed on, and so you lose your house, your credit takes a major hit, and it's very, very difficult for you to get financing again for another purchase once your finance recovers. Generally speaking, I always tell people, listen, no matter what the situation is, doing nothing is usually not a very good option. The second option is loan modification, and this could be a good option for some people. And this is where you work with the bank and you work out a modification to your loan agreement. Usually it involves some kind of lowering of your monthly payment, but it also means an extension of the number of payments. So those payments get put on the back end of the loan. You end up paying more interest in the long run. The reality is, if the reason that you weren't able to pay your loan, pay your mortgage, is because you lost your job and you still don't have your job back, a loan modification really may not help you a whole lot, because you're still probably not going to be able to pay even that lower mortgage rate or mortgage payment because you still don't have a job. But it really can be a good option, and it's definitely a window of hope for those that have fallen behind on their mortgage payments. The third thing you can do is hire an attorney and go after a foreclosure defense. And again, what you're doing here is you're buying yourself time before you would need to vacate the house. Generally speaking, foreclosure defense is certainly a time-consuming process, plus there's costs involved because you've got that attorney that you're going to have to pay at the end of the day. But it is definitely an option if you have a valid reason for why you've fallen behind, if the bank's done something, if it's been an error, all kinds of reasons why you might try to mount a foreclosure defense. The fourth thing is that you hire an attorney and file for bankruptcy. Once again, though, this is a situation that's going to ultimately result in a major hit to your credit. It's going to be at least 2 years before you can qualify for a mortgage once that bankruptcy is actually enacted. And so that is not a really good option for a lot of people. The fifth option is to talk to someone like me that has experience in working with people who find themselves in this situation. And listen, I understand there's a lot of reasons why someone might fall behind on their mortgage payments. Doesn't make them a bad person. It doesn't make them even financially irresponsible. For some people that might be the reason, but for most people, it's a major life event that happened. So loss of a job, a divorce, major medical bills. Those are a lot of the reasons why someone might be facing a foreclosure. And want to tell a little story here about a couple I helped a number of years ago. This is before the pandemic, probably about 4 years ago. The girlfriend actually had contacted me on Facebook. I'm pretty active in a lot of real estate Facebook groups, and talked about potentially wanting to help her boyfriend sell their house. It took several months talking back and forth, but eventually he had me come in and evaluate the home. And what I learned when I talked with him is that he actually was in pre-foreclosure. What that means is the lis pendens has been filed in court. He is looking at a foreclosure. When I looked at the numbers for his house and how much he owed and how much his house was worth, what I quickly realized was that he actually had equity. He was not looking at a short sale where his home was worth less than what he owed. He actually had equity in the house. And so I talked with him a little bit about how that worked with pre-foreclosure and what he needed to do. And ultimately what he decided to do was go ahead and go to the court with our listing agreement, agreed to list with me. He went to the court and explained that he was selling the house, that he had some equity, and so he would be able to pay off the debt in full by selling the house. And so the court gave him more time. We ultimately got the house sold, and I can't remember, I think he made about $30,000 on the sale of his house. That's $30,000 that he wouldn't have had he not looked at other options. If he'd have just let the bank do what it was going to do, they'd have taken his home, destroyed his credit, and he would have had nothing to show for it. And this was actually a situation where it really wasn't his fault. His ex-wife, who ultimately the reason she was an ex was she was cheating on him, but she was also charging up credit cards in his name without his knowledge, and all of a sudden he got flooded with a bunch of credit card bills and he just couldn't get caught up in everything. And frankly, the house, was tied to his ex-wife, and so he had bad memories, so he didn't really care about losing the house. Ultimately, he was ready to move on with his life, with his girlfriend and his kids and all that. But, $30,000 for most of us is a lot of money to walk away from. And so we were able to get his house sold, closed before the foreclosure proceeding started. He paid off the lender. He walked away with some money that, could set him up, at least get him into a rental for a while, let him get back on his feet. Get himself situated, and then maybe at later down the road he could look to purchase. So the moral of the story here is that before you let a house go into foreclosure, check with a real estate professional, hopefully me, and find out what your home's worth and find out if you have equity. I do free equity checks for clients, so if you find yourself in that situation, please reach out, let me know, let me come in and evaluate your home, see the condition, and let you know how much your home might be worth if we were to sell it on the open market. And if there is equity there, then it could definitely be to your advantage for us to get that home listed as quickly as possible and try to get it sold, and have you walk away with some money. And not to mention, your credit won't take as big a hit in that situation. You'll still have those records of those behind payments and all, but at least you don't have a foreclosure, which is a major hit on your credit. So you put yourself in a much better situation moving forward, and you might even be able to walk away with a little bit of cash in your pocket. So I hope this information is helpful. If you are in this situation, like I said, the worst thing you can do if you're starting to fall behind on your payments, the worst thing you can do is do nothing. First thing you should do is absolutely reach out to your lender, check in with them, make sure, see if you can work something out. If you can't, though, talk to a real estate professional, find out, let them do an equity check for you, find out if you've got some equity hidden in your home that you might be able to take advantage of, so that you don't give that money to the bank or to an investor, frankly, who's going to purchase that property once it's owned by the bank. Again, if you have questions, please reach out to me. I hope you'll subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'd love to hear from you. And again, if you're in this situation, again, I understand that it has nothing to do with you being irresponsible. It's more than likely due to life events, life circumstances, and everyone deserves a way out. And if I can help you, I would love to do so. Have a great day.